doing what is just. There was a lady during the time of Muawiyah. She lived during the time of Imam Ali alayhi salatu and had interaction with him as well. Sauda bint Umara al-Hamadani. It said that her husband was one of those individuals who was killed in the Battle of Siffin. Her husband stood on the side of Ibn al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib. He was killed. And then afterwards, again, what happened was what happened. Of course, after the sulh of Imam Hassan al-Mushtabah alayhi salatu wasalam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa ajil farajah. She lived in the Muslim world. Said once she came to Muawiyah, she came to him and she started complaining. She said that you have placed an individual, you have given this individual authority, Busra ibn Arta. So she's given him authority, he's coming, he's supposed to collect the zakat, he's supposed to collect the money. He says, but he comes to our village, he comes to our tribe, he kills our men, he steals our money. He does it all in your name. She said, she tells Muhammad, she says, I swear, she says, either you correct this, or our tribe, we're going to come after you. And Muawiyah gets upset and says, well, I should just send you back to Busra and let you deal with him. Why are you coming to me? So at this point, Sauda, she put her head down and then she began to say, she started saying, Assalamu ala al-ruh. Peace be upon that soul. Alladhi dufina wal haqqu madfoon ma'a. Peace be upon that soul that has been buried, who has passed along from this world, and unfortunately, justice was buried with him. And Muawiyah, he heard this, he says, who are you speaking? Are you speaking about who I think you're speaking? She said, yes, Wallah, I'm speaking about Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib. His past and justice has been buried with him. She then says, something happened during the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen. So one individual who was appointed, he came around and he was not being just. Again, he was looking out for his own self-interest rather than taking the right amount of zakat from the people. He took more. She said, in the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen, he said, I went to Amir al-Mu'mineen and I complained to him. He said, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he was in Salat, he finished his Salat. He says, what do you is there a need that you have? So she said, I complained to Amir al-Mu'mineen that what happened, that this individual, again, he's not killing the men, but he took more than he was supposed to take. And what she said, فَبَكَى Amir al-Mu'mineen. He began to cry. And then he said, Allahumma anta shahidu bayni, anta shahidun alayya wa alayhim. أني ما لم آمرتهم بظلم خلقك. Says, oh Allah, you are my witness. You're my witness and you're a witness over this individual that I never commanded anyone to oppress your creation. She said right there in that moment, Amir al-Mu'mineen, he began to write a letter for this individual who took more than what his right was. And she came with bayinah, she came with proof. He wrote a letter, he says that whatever you have in your possession at this moment, he says you keep it, you hold on to it until someone comes and they're going to take it from you. In other words, he was immediately removing this person from his position because he wasn't being just. This is something that Amir al-Mu'mineen, he didn't sway her anyway. it was proven that this individual was unjust. He says, right now, this verse, you have to leave your position at this moment. Someone will come, take the money from you, and he will take over. He says, and then Amir al-Mu'mineen, he corrected the injustice of that individual. So does she stood before Muhammad. She's like, that was Amir al-Mu'mineen, and this is you. You're telling me that I'm coming to you complaining, proving to you that this individual is unjust, and you said you want to return me back to that same individual for him to deal with me? Of course, the only thing that we could do is, I said, at that point he felt ashamed. He called his people and says, give her what she wants. She bore witness to what justice was. And who were the establishers of justice? We too must bear witness to justice, not remain silent in face of injustice. Not only we are taught in the example of the AhlulBayt of Amir al-Mu'mineen, but even in our ziyarat. Read the ziyarat of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam in the beginning of Rajab. In that ziyarah we say, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, wa nashhadu ba'annaka aqamta bil-adli wal-qist. Aqamta al-qisti wal-adl. That peace be upon you, Aba Abdullah, and I bear witness, ashhadu annaka qad aqamta al-qist wal-adl. I should bear witness that you have went forth to establish justice. But our bearing witness to justice doesn't begin and end simply with a ziyarah. It must be in our action, in our everyday life. This is what we should be learning from Imam Hussein. This is what we learn from Karbala. That whether you see it in the streets, the injustice, speak out against it. Whether you see it in the court, administration, you speak out against it. Ya AhlulBayt, after the shahadat of Imam Hussein, his companions and his family, where were they taken? They were taken to the courts of that time. And even in that situation, saying, oh, well, the courts are there. Again, these are individuals. They're supposed to have power, but they did not fret. They did not back down from establishing truth, bearing witness to what was true. We learned this from AhlulBayt. We learned this from Imam Zayn al-Abidin, alayhi salatu wasalam. As it was said today that in two places, Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he had to go before the court. One was in Kufa, in front of Ibn Ziyad, and the other one was in Sham, in Damascus. Of course, as we know from the language of Imam Zayn al-Abidin, when he was asked what was the most difficult of the two, he says, Asham, Asham, Asham. That yes, Sham was the most difficult. But nonetheless, each and every place was difficult because he would not back down from establishing truth. Let me take you to that moment, that scene where Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he stood with the AhlulBayt in the court of Ibn Ziyad. They said that when they were in the court, Ibn Ziyad, he had the women and children before him in chains. Imam Zayn al-Abidin was also in chains. And when he saw Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he says, Man hada? Who is this? Zaynab al-Kubra, salamullah alayha, she answered, he says, Hada Ali ibn al-Husayn. This is Ali ibn Husayn. What did Ibn Ziyad say? He said, Alaysa Allah qatala Ali ibn Husayn? Did not Allah kill Ali ibn Husayn in Karbala? Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he responded at that moment. He says, Allahu yatawaffa al-anfus hina mawtiha. He says, no, Allah, He takes the souls. Do not blame your injustice upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He wanted to say that Allah killed Ali ibn Hussein, that Allah killed Hussein. Imam Zayn al-Abidin says, no, Allah, He's just. Allah does not kill an individual. Allah receives and accepts the souls at the point of their death. And then Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he began to explain that who was Ali ibn Hussein. He said, that I have a brother, Yusamma Ali, that his name was Ali. But you know that in Karbala, Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he had two brothers who were called by Ali. One was Ali al-Akbar, the other was Ali al-Asghar. Imam Zayn al-Abidin, he says, عندي أخويا واسمه علي, that in me I have a brother, his name was Ali. وقتلوه الناس في كربلاء, and the people killed him in Karbala. Who was this brother that they killed in Karbala? This was the individual, as Imam Hussein himself said on the day of Karbala. Ya Allah, Allahumma ashhad anna ha'ula al-qawm yuqatilu ashbahu an-nasi khalqan wa khulqan bi Rasulillah. Oh Allah, bear witness that these people, they're about to kill the one who looks most like Rasulullah, who sounds most like Rasulullah, who acts most like Rasulullah. Imam Hussein said on that day, he said that, oh Allah, bear witness that whenever we wanted to remember your Rasul, whenever I wanted to remember my grandfather, what did they do? They looked at Ali al-Akbar. Whenever they wanted to hear the voice of Rasulullah, they spoke to Ali al-Akbar. This was the Ali al-Akbar they killed on Ashura in Karbala. This Ali Akbar, he was the one that when he was falling to the ground, he said to his father, Ya Abata, Hada Jaddi Rasulullah. This is Ali Akbar who saw his grandfather Rasulullah on the day of Karbala as he was falling to the ground. Ya Jaddi Hada Jaddi Rasulullah Yusqini min Kasi. My grandfather is now bringing a cold drink for me. This was Ali Akbar. This was one of the Alis who was martyred in Karbala. The other Ali who was the brother of Imam Zayn al-Abidin. He was only a 6-month-old baby, Abdullah by name, but he was called Ali al-Asghar. This was the brother of Imam Zayn al-Abidin who was shot in the throat with an arrow. This is Ali's brother. This is Imam Zayn al-Abidin's brother. One of the Alis. And we often recite in our ziyarah, we say, Assalamu ala Hussein wa ala Ali ibn Hussein. And one of the things that I always wondered, that which Ali ibn Hussein we're speaking about. Are we speaking about Ali al-Akbar who was martyred, or Ali al-Asghar who was martyred in Karbala? This Ali, both of the brothers, one of the brothers, as Imam Zayn al-Abidin, when he went back to Karbala on the 13th of Muharram to bury these bodies, one of his brothers, Ali Akbar, he buried beside Imam Hussein. But based on the wasiyah of his father, based on the will of Imam Hussein, he says, but the little Ali Asghar, Abdullah al-Radi, he says, bury him in my grave, bury him beside my chest. Ali Asghar, he was buried in the grave of Imam Hussein, based on the will of Imam Hussein, by the chest. Subhanallah, this was Ali Asghar, who was martyred in the hands of his father, who the arrow, when it went through the throat of Ali Asghar, it pierced part of the chest of Imam Hussein. And then Imam Hussein says, put him in my grave, and put him beside my chest as well. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. اللهم بحق هذه المجلس الحسينية اغفر ذنوبنا واستر عيوبنا وقضي حوائجنا واشفي مرضانا وارحم أمواتنا وعجل فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان واجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره والمستشهدين بين يديه وتحت لوائه. And inshallah, for the well-being of all of the mu'mineen and mu'minat who are suffering from illnesses, for all of the mu'mineen and mu'minat and every individual around the world, whether they follow Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad or they don't follow Muhammad and Ali Muhammad, but they are suffering from oppression and injustice. Let's make this dua, and this is the dua of Imam Zaman, who also wants to hasten his return back to this world to establish justice. Amma yujib, inshallah, for the hasty recovery of all of the believers, mu'mineen mu'minat, who are sick, and for the lifting of injustice from every individual in this world. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yajibu al-mudtarra